Radio Forest Podcast.
What's up? It's Mario.
Mario, how are you today, man?
Very good. Fantastic. How are you?
Good. Congratulations on getting married.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Where did you guys get married at, and how did it go, I guess, overall?
Well, so we got married in Las Vegas.
Uh-huh.
Which is the most tacky option. But I like it. I'm from Germany, and it's like the most American thing we could do. We're still planning an actual wedding with her family, or with my family back in Germany. So we're planning that for next year at a castle in Germany.
And she thought you were actually gay at first when you guys first met. Can you give me that quick little overview of you guys first getting together?
Well, everybody thinks I'm gay because I'm European. When I go to a gym here, I wear, because when I first came here, I used to wear these very short European soccer shorts.
Yeah.
Because my dad's a soccer player, and he wore those back in the 80s. That's what we wear in Germany. So people just based on my style in general, I wear Speedos, I wear short shorts. People always think I'm gay. And I don't know, I just gave off that vibe. I'm also not very, I'm never hitting on girls. So I was not very forward. I'm not a creep. I'm not American. So I was not super forward with her. And that's why she thought I was gay, and she thought, I asked her for a date, and she thought she was just hanging out with her new gay best friend. That's what she was thinking, yes.
And I watched your video of the homophobic heckler. Do you feel like that's something that doesn't happen as often in Germany and Europe, or is that pretty universal? Because in an embarrassing way, I feel like that's kind of more American.
I think so too. I think in Germany, I have this, the sexuality, we don't care as much. If you go to a techno club in Berlin, you can see two dudes making out in the corner. And every German's going to be like, oh, look, they're such good friends.
Yeah.
It's much more, people don't care as much about sexuality, I feel like. And I also do feel like if you're homophobic or you get offended about, I made a gay joke about going to a gay gym. And this guy in Florida got super offended about the joke. And I think if you get that offended, you must be a little bit gay at least, you know what I mean? Because why would you get so offended if you're comfortable with your sexuality? So I think, the fact that in Europe everything is a bit more open-minded and people are more comfortable, therefore there's not as much homophobia, I feel like. Just more acceptance.
I saw some comedians recently say that worse than having people offended at a comedy show is actually no response at all, just like a dead silent crowd. Would you agree? Would you rather have a little bit of that interaction, or is it too much and it's hard to stay on what you're doing, I guess? Oh,
no, I think you sometimes have to offend because you're getting a reaction for sure. I mean, even though that show with that homophobic heckler in Florida, which is also one of my first shows ever on the road, which is, I'm very new to comedy when I did that show. And then I was confronted by this dude who told me to stop telling gay jokes and whatnot. But everybody in the crowd would agree that it was a very memorable. I mean, in some way it was funny because I was able to interact with him, kind of shut him up. So people definitely remember that show, which, in a way, that's better than people watching your show and being like, it was whatever. They were like, oh my God, did you see this guy's show? He had this guy he roasted on stage because he was heckling him. Yeah.
As an American, and oftentimes, if I were to be in Germany, I'd be very conscious about not being too cocky, arrogant, or rude. I feel like sometimes that's the worldview of the American. So as a German in America, are there any things that you're trying to keep track of and not be too German about, or is there stereotypes of Germans that you're worried? I don't want to give America a bad name, and I think of the bad views of America as how people view Americans. So in a reverse way, what are you worried about as far as being viewed as a German in America?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to, first of all, not look like a Nazi. Yeah. That's the first thing I try to do. I try to only wave at people with my left hand. I'm trying to do...
Yeah.
In Germany, obviously, we have a lot of guilt, for everything we did. Germany is somewhat of a dark history, you might say. So, so I was very aware of that when I first went to New York, because I was in a very Jewish neighborhood. So I felt, we have so much guilt in Germany, but we never really come in contact with Jewish people. Mm-hmm. But then I lived in South Williamsburg, and I went to all these, I love this Jewish neighborhood. I went to this, Jewish deli, had, Reuben sandwiches, matzo ball soup. And I got along with the Jewish owner, Noah was his name, so well. But I never told them where I was from because I was kind of ashamed. I know I didn't do anything, but
still,
I have this history, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he asked me one day, it was like, oh, you're an accent. Where are you from originally? And I was so like, I don't know what to tell, because I knew I didn't do anything, but I still just like, I didn't want to ruin the vibe. So I looked at him, I was like, I'm from Italy, mamma mia. You know,
yeah. My name's Mario. You can get away.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that. Yeah.
With your dad being a soccer player, do you follow Bundesliga at all, or the German national team? That's my favorite national team is Germany. So what's it like?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just love them. I think they should have had it the last couple of World Cups, but well, not really. I guess I wish they would have had it because they were so good, like 8 years ago. So what's it like in Germany with the Bundesliga and your dad playing soccer and the German national team? Like, does everybody rally around the team?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, of course, Germans support the German national team. It's just so funny that in Germany, we don't have the same level of like national pride.
Yeah, that was my question. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Even if you cheer for your soccer team, like I went to spend time in Mexico during the World Cup, and I saw how much like how they would celebrate Mexico, and I was like, oh my God, like they were all like, oh, Mexico is the best country in the world, and if Germans said that, it has a different connotation if we Germans say that we're the best country in the world.
Again, you know? Yeah, that does sound pretty bad. Yeah. Yeah.
It just sounds like, a little like 80 years ago. So there is that, and we do celebrate our national team, but we're always like, if I celebrated Germany, like, if I actually was at a bar with my wife in Chicago when Germany was playing in the last World Cup, and Germany scored a goal in the last second of the game against Spain, and I jumped up. I was like, yeah, Tor für Deutschland, and I was cheering for Germany, and then everybody looked at me a little weird, and I felt a little, I was like, I have a Jewish friend, I was like,
she's Jewish,
I'm a good German.
It's okay, yeah.
German, but not that German,
I also wanted to ask you, I saw that your family was into lumbering as a child in Germany. Mine was as well. So I have some very specific smells associated with that. I mean, there's chainsaws, there's oil, there's sawdust. Do you have as strong as a smell memory as me, or is that just like a weird thing? Because that industry, to me, has such an aroma of different things. Oh,
I fully agree with you. I used to work with my uncles a lot. Like my uncle's a lumberjack, and they have a lot of land, and I would help when I was younger. Even like when I was like, I guess 9. I got an axe for Christmas one year when I was 8 years old.
Oh, and you got your mom one too, right? Yeah.
Exactly. My mom, she also got an axe for my dad for Christmas one year. Like, it's so funny, but like, that's what I grew up with. And I will agree, man, like working in the forest, there's the smell of what do you call it? Like in German it's called Hotz. It's like the syrup of the tree, that aroma
sap.
Of like
they call it
trees.
Sap here. Yeah.
Okay, sap. Yeah. So that's there's something about that, and I love the smell of that, because if I did any sort of manual labor, for sure that's my favorite. Because first of all, you can see what you achieved. Like if you chop down a tree and you put it and you load it up, it's like you accomplished something. Whereas like I did some work also when I was younger. I worked at a local brewery, and I was like bottling up beer bottles, which is cool. But like there's no real. You're inside. There's like a different smell. But being outside in nature, the smell. It's definitely something very nostalgic for me. You're also a retired German model, so this might sound weird at first, but I think you'll probably understand once we get into it. Can I ask, how much do you weigh now in pounds? Okay, I weigh 200 pounds now. So you got quite a bit heavier for a while, right? Can you tell me about that? But then you ended up cutting out grain. So tell me about you as your beefiest. How hard was it to get there? And then the change in deciding that's not really the body style that you liked, I guess, the most. Yeah, it's so confusing. It's like when I grew up in Germany, all my family lived lumberjacks. So my uncle once made a joke about me that I was like skinny. He called me a hagerer Lauchburschenbub, which in German means skinny. Okay, so when he called me that long for the word skinny, yeah, I know. German is not a very efficient language. But so when he told me that, I was like, oh, I got to beef up. So then I did basically bodybuilding, and I got up to 98 kilograms, which is like maybe 215, maybe something like that, pounds. Then I started modeling, and in modeling, most people don't know this. You don't have to be muscular. You have to be skinny because you have to fit these tiny designer jackets. Because I did more like runway modeling when I was younger, like 19 years old or something. Mm-hmm. And then I had to lose all the weight again. So it's weird beefing up to fit, like to please my uncle and be like a real German lumberjack. And then I had to be skinny again. So to give you an idea, I went down to under 80 kilograms. So I went down to like maybe 170 or something like that. So I went from I lost like around 40 pounds probably I lost. Wow. From my heaviest to then doing modeling, which is, it's not good. And also it was not really the body type. Like I'm happy in the middle, like where I'm right now. I love working out. but I don't like being super skinny or super buff. Because when you're skinny, I did the typical Milan Fashion Week diet, which is espresso and cigarettes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just sick of that. And once I stopped modeling, I could just go back to like a more natural way of eating, which is nice, you know.
And I know you cut out grains. So let me ask you this. So I had a photographer friend that spent some time in Europe last summer, and he has like celiac disease here, and he's got a lot of issues with gluten. And he said over there, he had zero issues. He's like, I was eating pizza and bread and pasta, and there was no problems. Yeah. So what have you noticed that's different between the States and Germany, or more broader sense, Europe? Did you notice that many differences in food?
100%. And I have the exact same experience that he had. I don't have celiac disease. I just noticed that I was getting more tired because I was eating like grains here, you know, sometimes bread, oatmeal, pasta, whatever. And I would eat that in Germany because in Germany, my uncle was a baker. So we had like the grains were all, they were literally, they're from the same farm that my uncle grew up in. So it's basically it's like super local. And I don't know what it is about it, but the bread in Germany, like when I eat bread in America, I get bloated. I feel more tired. So I did this whole like blood work with a doctor and told me to cut out grains and I feel so much better. But when I go back to Germany, I can drink milk and it doesn't mess up my stomach as much. I can eat bread and I truly don't know what it is. It might be because American stuff is just usually more commercialized. It's more highly processed. So like breads are, you know, they have the bleached flour. They have like lactose in bread, a bunch of ingredients you wouldn't know. Like if you look at a toast, like a American bread at the supermarket, it has like 30 ingredients, whereas like in Germany it has 2. You know what I mean?
Like grain and water.
Yeah, literally like flour and water, whatever, maybe some salt. So I don't know what it is, but definitely Europe. I feel like the quality of food is definitely better in Germany. That's why all my American friends, when they go to Europe, they eat pasta in Italy and whatnot, and they don't necessarily gain weight.
Doing comedy now, so you're traveling. You've got an extensive modeling background. That's a ton of traveling. So where are your favorite places to go, but as in you would go back a second time? Because sometimes if you travel, you're like, I've already been there. I don't want to go there. I want to go to a new place. So what place would draw you back for another time? And a second question, where are your favorite places to eat out of all the places you've traveled to? Oh
my God, that's such a good question. So I do like Chicago a lot. I don't know, something about it. My wife's from there. I liked it a lot. Also, the food, it's very German in a way. You know, the food reminded me of Germany. You know, like very meat heavy. Yeah. And it's so funny. And I don't know, Americans never agree with me, but I love diners. Like to me, a diner is like even Denny's or like IHOP. These diners are like, that to me is what I grew up with. Like I grew up watching American movies where, you know, you fall in love with a cheerleader at a diner while you're like drinking a milkshake. That is such a romantic, nostalgic thing for me. So when I see diners, I feel the same way as you Americans probably feel when you see a castle in Europe, you know, because you're like, oh, castle is so historic, you know, and I'm like, no, Denny's. I go into the diner, I'm like, oh my God, it's so American, you know. So I do like diners a lot, which is weird, but you know. Pancakes for breakfast, like we don't have pancakes in Germany as much, and especially not for breakfast. And there's like pancakes all day at a diner. I'm fascinated by that.
Do you get to do the small town diners, or at least the ones that are like mom and pop owned and not a Denny's? Because those are the best. When you can get breakfast all day. It looks a little dirtier. The kitchen's a little sketchier, but that'll be the best diner food ever.
Yeah, and that's what I want to do on my tour. I'm doing this whole like German efficiency tours. I'm touring the whole U.S. And I have some dates that I'm going to be driving consciously because usually when I go to a new city, I usually take an airplane. So I go to big cities primarily. You know, I've been to like Miami, Chicago, but I've not been to like a small town, you know, in like Idaho. So I want to drive through and experience like a small diner, as you're saying. But for now, I've only been to like the big cities. So you're saying small town diners are better.
Tell me about your Uncensored podcast. So you have guests on there. Sometimes there's video components. How long have you been doing it? And I guess what's the general explanation of what the Uncensored podcast is like?
Yeah, so I started a podcast during the pandemic because it's weird. First of all, there's nothing else to do really. So like there's no stand-up, no modeling gigs happening. So I just wanted another outlet for my content. And I noticed that a lot of stuff gets removed. My main channel on YouTube is monetized. So I made like most of my money with that channel. But then once you say a word, like once you said, for example, COVID-19, boom, video gets demonetized. Once you talk about anything controversial, like I talk about modeling, my modeling experience, even about some controversial things like sexual harassment in modeling, whenever I talked about anything that's not PG, it would get demonetized. So I was like, let me make a podcast where I can just openly speak my mind. That's why it's called uncensored, because we talk about anything, So when I have guests on, we tackle like, uncomfortable topics. It's edgy, it's funny, it's silly. So yeah, that's what I wanted with the channel. Well, it's just more raw. My other YouTube channel is everything's highly edited, and I just wanted the raw, uncensored outlets to talk to people.
You're super easy to talk to, and you've got a ton of experience in front of people and talking on stage and meeting different people. It was kind of hard to watch your video about the sexual harassment and the one that was, pretty extreme. So how hard was it for you to decide to do that? Because I know you kind of kept that to yourself for a while until you just shared it with one friend. But when deciding to get it on video with your personality, was that an easy transition or was that a pretty hard decision to make?
No, it was difficult because people like on YouTube, they know me as like the silly guy who's doing like the modeling vlogs, and everything's pretty silly. Nothing's too serious. So it's definitely a big jump from that to doing a very serious video talking about sexual assault, right? But I thought I just know that if I can just help one person, like one man especially, who's in my position, or who was in my position, and tell them that it's okay to talk about, difficult things as men, to be more vulnerable. I felt it was like almost a responsibility to talk about it. And I was super nervous when I posted the video because, as I talked about, like as men especially, we sometimes feel like we don't have permission to be vulnerable or show emotions or say that something affected us. So that's why it was a scary thing. But the support was overwhelming. When I posted the video right away, all the comments were so many, especially men, coming out saying, "Hey, I'm so glad you gave me permission to talk about my feelings." And I think that feedback made it all worth it. And it was a very positive experience overall. I think the net is definitely a positive because it inspired a lot of men to be more real,
Well, he's a retired German model, a YouTuber, a vlogger, a comedian. He has It's a Me tattoo. It's Mario Adrion. Hey, thank you so much for talking to me today, Mario. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you.